Okay, I'm being like a major hypocrite right now because I just made a video where I'm like, I don't do do-overs and I don't do um, second takes, and because I feel like once I've talked about something, I've already talked about it, and you know, if I screw up in the first 30 seconds of the video, I'll start over. But once I get into it, a couple minutes worth, a screw up is a screw up, and it stays. And because I'm going to screw up some more times because it's not rehearsed. I mean, I have a checklist written right here about the things that I want to talk about, and and that's my script. It's whatever is written right there. So uh, I started to listen back to it, and the sound was all messed up. I think I had the gain on the mic too high. There was still a little bit of background noise with the mic that I didn't like, but it wasn't as irritating as my last attempt to use this mic. So, anyways, I got really embarrassed at the end of the video because I don't know what the fuck happened. It just fragmented horribly, and I was like, toward the end of the video, I was like, I know it's not a lot of fun, probably sitting here watching me beat myself up, but sometimes I get this feeling of shame and embarrassment at the end of a video because I just get that. It's not a lack of confidence thing. It's a surety that I have just produced a big pile of awful, spelled OFFAL, which means refuse, garbage, or worse. And yeah, I had that. Oops, I had that feeling. So I turned the gain down a little bit on the mic, see if it sounds a little better, and make a little shorter video. Um, a couple of the main things that I had talked about was I never got a chance to confront the worker that I had only the one time who didn't make me sign any kind of receipt paper and seems to have just kept all my money, which, not a good thing. I didn't ask about it, but I didn't get any change back from her. And like I said, I cannot guess what my laundry is going to cost down to the quarter, or I should go to the fair and guess how many jelly beans are in the jar. I mean, you don't know how much it's going to cost, especially me. I haven't been in a laundromat in 20 years. So uh, I didn't get a chance to ask her that because the big girl showed up and I haven't seen her for like a month and a half. And I was like, oh, I wanted to make her clean my toilet, but I already have my list made out and I did need a couple of things. I already had like an itinerary made out for the aid worker that would show up, and I wasn't expecting to see her. And shopping and go do this and go do that. And since it's her and I trust her, I don't trust that other person that kept all my money. I like wrote in, go to the bank and get some money out of the bank because she's at least trustworthy as far as like not stealing from me like this other person did. So whether they stole from me intentionally or they stole from me on purpose, I asked the aid worker about her. I asked her about this person. She said, well, she's kind of sketchy as far as like her reputation among the aid workers. A lot of the clients complain about her and stuff like that. And it wasn't like she wanted to rag on one. She was like, I think she was toning it down a little bit, is what I'm saying. My nose is itchy. I'm sorry. But so I asked her. I said, "There's still the clothes that got washed. Do you think those clothes cost like $18 to wash?" And she's like, "No, no." Man, I should. This is great. My nose. Well, you just sneeze already. People are not offended by people sneezing. To quote Dr. Seuss, it feels like several smallish bees have crawled up my nose. I think that's a line from the Lorax. But anyways, so I'm like, hey, insert name here. I haven't seen you for like a month and a half. Okay, what is wrong with me today? Did I mention that she had COVID yet? I don't even know. There's something wrong with my brain today. I don't know what's up. I have no clue what is going on with me. So, anyways, I hadn't seen her for a month because she had COVID, and I was like, well, how bad was it? Did you go to the hospital? And she's like, no. My doctor told me not to go to the hospital. I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said going to the hospital just would have made it worse. And I'm like, that's an interesting doctor to myself. But I just wanted to hear her story, of course. And she was like, oh, it was terrible. I was sick for 2 weeks, and I, I was like, um, couldn't keep any food in me. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you couldn't keep any food in you? Was you vomiting or shitting or both? I'm kind of blunt about things like that. And she is more of a demure type of person. She never swears or anything like that. But she was like, oh, I was shitting, and I was shitting a lot. She was like, it was horrible, and I didn't know that was one of the symptoms, but that went along with COVID. But she knows for a fact that it was COVID because she reported to the aid agency um, that she had a fever. They made her get tested. She tested positive. She knows that she caught it off a client because the client was all sniffly and hacking, and was having trouble breathing and stuff, and had symptoms. And then later that client tested positive. So she knows where she got it, and she knows for a fact that it's COVID, and she knows for a fact that she couldn't keep anything inside her for a very long time, which is horrible. Anybody that's had the intestinal flu knows that it's a horrible thing. You can't eat. You can barely drink when you're like that. So she said, "Oh yeah, I had a fever," and I'm like, "You had a fever? Like how high was it?" Because I was curious. Because when I had whatever mystery sickness I had like a super high fever. Like I woke up with chills and like with chattering teeth and stuff, and I didn't even take my temperature then. I waited until I mellowed out a little bit because I was just trying to keep warm. And like I said before, I got it so hot in here with this heater that when I went to take the thermometer out and I turned it on, it took the temperature of the air, and the air was 91 point something. The air was almost 92 degrees. So, the thermometer was, um, yeah. So I had to turn the heater off and wait for the room to cool down to get the thermometer to operate properly, digital thermometer. When I took my temperature, it was 102 point something. So, I had 102 temperature after my fever had mellowed out. And then it was weird because, like, in 5 hours, my temperature dropped all the way down to 99.3 without taking any kind of medication at all. It's very weird. So that's why I was curious about whether she had a fever. And she's like, oh, I had like 102 fever for like 5 days. She didn't say like 5 days. She said 5 days because she said I woke up in a pool of sweat, and I realized that my fever had finally broken, and I was so relieved. She said because during those 5 days she took Advil, she took Tylenol, she took aspirin, she took everything trying to knock the fever down, and it wouldn't go down. So it was almost bad enough where she should have been in the hospital. She also is like 5'6" and weighs about 300 pounds. So that's one of your high risk people, is people that are obese, because she might go 250. I'm being mean saying she weighs 300 pounds. She probably goes 250, at least two, at least two and some change. So anyways, she's a big old girl, and that's like, she's in a high risk category. She really probably should have been in the hospital. Now, my brother told me that the hospitals in Ohio are being reported as overflowing. So that might have been why the doctor was like, don't go to the hospital. But that's what my brother told me. I don't know. I have no idea if any of that is true. I'm just going by what these people are telling me. So, um, her husband also got really sick, and the weird part is her dad lives right next door to her, and her dad got sick with COVID too and tested positive, but he was barely sick at all, and his sickness lasted 3 days. Where he's in uh, his 70s, and the younger person sicker than hell for 2 weeks. So that's why I'm like, I figure like I'm allowed to say this the way certain people are allowed to say certain words, but since I'm in the highest risk category, I'm like, fuck this whole lockdown shit. The hell with it. It's like there's asymptomatic people walking around being typhoid Marys anyway. There's nothing that can be done about it, you know. Locking things down and the whole mask thing. It's like, okay, you know, take precautions. You know, don't breathe on people. You know, observe some social distancing and stuff like that. But don't lock down things again. I mean, we have a 10 p.m. curfew here. It's like the only thing we're doing right now. I don't know what the hell that's going to do. I think that if they put a curfew on us, we're not going to get drunk and act like naughty little children at bars and play tonsil hockey and spread disease or whatever. I don't know what the point of the curfew is even. So, but from my point of view, I'm allowed to say like, if I'm got heart issues and you know, issues upon issues, I'm allowed to say, man, just stop with this shit already. You know, we're gonna have to live with it. We're gonna have to deal with it. Like, people are gonna get sick. They're gonna get different degrees of sick. They're gonna be like, I had 3 relatives in Florida, all caught COVID, all were asymptomatic, didn't even know they were sick. The only reason they found out was I have a cousin named Sandy that works in a nursing home, and they have to get tested on a regular basis. So she tested positive. So she tells her family, and they all get tested, and their family gets all tested, and they're all shocked to find out that they had COVID. You know, so they're all asymptomatic. Now, they have a theory that it's in our bloodline. That, you know, it's like, well, I mean, okay, it's a nice theory and all, but yeah, I'm still curious if I had it when I had that weird illness where I had the spiking fever and all that, that just like disappeared, which never happens. It's really like too much of a wild card right now. The only logic I could see behind a lockdown would be like, we're this close to getting a vaccine, you know, so everybody, you know, keep playing the game, wearing the mask, keeping distance, away from each other, certain amount of isolation, and only necessary activities and all that, because we're going to get this vaccine. We know this vaccine works and stuff. Now, when I was talking to my brother, he was saying that they already are using a vaccine in England, in Great Britain. So I'm like, cool, we can use them as guinea pigs. We can use those Brits as guinea pigs, and we'll see how it goes, because I kind of feel like they're pushing this vaccine awful fast. I mean, there's no time, there's no trials, there's no times to see, no time to see if it has any long-term effects that are negative. There's, you know, they tested. How could there be? It's only been like, what, we've had to live with COVID for only 11 months now. So it got to the States last January. If, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. So, you know, how in the fuck is that enough time to know the long-term effects of any vaccine? That's the only thing that argument I can see for locking things down again, is what I'm saying. Is like, we got this vaccine, we almost got it together, we want to get you know, it shipped and ready to go, and so just hang tough there for a month or so. But yeah, Ohio, we've had a massive increase of COVID. Not just, you know, the big girls and her families. It's just like one story. We had like the biggest, this was something I read a couple of weeks ago, but we had the biggest jump single day jumps consecutively back to back, which freaked everybody out. That's the state of the thing here in Ohio. But for my way of thinking, if you can have, you know how like you can tell like when somebody has a cold or the flu, you know, and they used to send kids to school anyways so they can infect the other kids, but you always knew like that motherfucker's sick over there. And I ain't talking to him today. He's, you know, hey buddy, you're still my friend, but you're my friend from over there. You know, if you're a smart kid, stay away from it would be Typhoid Larry in this case. And why they would do that, I don't know, but it's just like go to school, sick kid, because they had this rule in the public schools where I think you were allowed to miss 6 days a quarter. So, you know, if your days were used up and you happened to catch the flu, you didn't get no seventh day. So you get in trouble unless you had a note from the doctor. And a lot of people that want to send their kid to the doctor over a goddamn cold or a flu or something like that that's not life threatening, because maybe their insurance ain't all that great. Who knows? But you know what I'm talking about. So you can see that shit coming, is what I'm saying. If you got people that are walking around sick and that are asymptomatic and you know they're doing like the regular weightlifting routine of an hour and like jogging to work and shit, and they've got COVID and they're just walking around and interacting with everybody, you know, what can you do about that? I mean, you can make everybody wear a mask. You can make them stay indoors indefinitely for, I don't know, in perpetuity. Or you can just say, look, we're going to have to live with this. You know, we're working on this vaccine. You just, I mean, the swine flu didn't go away. It still exists. It was a big deal when it came out. No, it's not. It wasn't as big a deal as COVID, as far as communicability and the amount of deaths attributed to COVID. But also, COVID, if you're healthy, even if you are way overweight and in a high risk category, like the aid worker, a real good chance you could live through it. She didn't even go to the hospital. You know, the doctor, I think I was trying to follow her story. She's not that bad of a storyteller, don't get me wrong. It's just I wasn't feeling very good yesterday. So, I don't remember if they were given her anything, or if they have any medications that they give people. I know that the president, when he got it, he got something like Regeneron or something like that. I don't know if everyday folks get treated with that. There's of course that one medication that I forget the name of that turned out to be controversial. That apparently uh, many doctors were saying works, but Fauci, if you're familiar with the name, I think he's the head of the CDC. I don't know, but he was like, I don't believe that. You know, there's some confusion about it, and of course, fodder for conspiracy theorists. But anyways, that's sort of like the news for me is like, oh, there's my aid worker. Oh, she had COVID. She was very, very sick for 2 weeks. Oh, she's come back to my house carrying groceries that she just bought me, and she doesn't have her mask on. And so I asked her. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my mask on. I didn't even tell her to put her mask on. She's like, oh, I forgot to put my mask on. So she just had it like draped down, like you know, just off of one ear. So she picked it up and put it back on her ear and stuff. And I'm like, what? I'm like, whatever. I'm like, I'm over the whole COVID fear thing. You know, I wasn't saying that a couple of days ago when I felt like I woke up feeling like horrible and I had congestion in my chest, because I don't want to go to the hospital, and I would probably have to go to the hospital if I caught it, if I wanted to live. Uh, you know, and if you've ever had bronchitis or pneumonia or anything where you can't breathe, or asthma, yeah, that feeling of like that you're drowning on dry land is not a good feeling. It's not something that you want and can put up with. It's not like, oh, my arm's a little sore today, you know. Or I was like, what the fuck happened to my neck there on last Monday? So, in other words, I'm not saying I'm like, hell with COVID. I ain't scared of no COVID. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to freak out because she come in without her mask. I just thought it was stupid. And she was holding my bags of groceries. Didn't stop me from tearing into the potato chips and eating some potato chips like 10 minutes after she left. But, anyways, so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the $1,200 stimulus check is off the table. I'm like, what the fuck? Because I was cruising through the news this morning on the computer, and I come across something that said that Congress is urgently trying to pass a COVID package, and I was like, cool. And then I read it, and it's like the $1,200 stimulus check is no longer a part of it. And then like every little, I didn't even read the articles, I didn't have to, but every little blurb out of every article is like not likely, uh, the chances are slim, and all this stuff that it will suddenly somebody be included. But I was like, oh, that'd be a nice Christmas present to give America in the middle of this COVID bullshit, is that $1,200 stimulus thing around Christmas. That'd be a nice Christmas present. But from all signs that I see, it's not even part of the bill that they want to pass. And where they're at now is around $950 billion bill, and I was like, well, that can't be right, because yeah, if you give stimulus checks to 300 million people, yeah, okay, I'm not all that good at math, but yeah, that don't sound right. But what could happen is they could delay it until, Trump is still president until uh, Biden gets sworn in. So what could happen is it could maybe wait until Biden gets sworn in, and that would mean that there would be Democratic control of the presidency and the House, and you got to have all three branches. It goes back and forth between the Senate and the House as far as the bill. So, if the Senate doesn't want to put in the $1,200, it's not going to be in there, and that seems to be where we're at right now. The Senate is still Republican controlled, is the way I understand it. Well, this is my understanding of it. Check it out for yourselves if you don't trust whatever the hell it is I'm saying about it. But my impression that's what I read this morning. Okay, the third thing I want to talk about is I saw Jordan Peterson for the first time since he made the horrible mistake of withdrawing too fast off of clonazepam, and I'm going to post that link down there. And yeah, he had pretty severe akathisia, which is of course the shaking thing. You probably know that. It's where you get the uncontrollable tremors and shaking. And yeah, what happened with him is he was an alcoholic, and it's like the Jamie dude. They give the benzo to get you off alcohol if you're a bad alcoholic, and the effect is similar, because the effect on the human body and the way the chemical dependence works is very similar between alcohol and benzos. So you're just swapping one devil for another, and that's what happened with Jordan Peterson. Is that he quit drinking, but he was stuck on clonazepam, and then uh, I don't know if he's not stupid, obviously, because he's like world famous intellectual type of dude, So he probably didn't say like, fuck these things, and throw his pill bottle out the window. So he probably just tried to withdraw too fast, and then got hit with all these crazy symptoms, you know. And anyways, you can look down the link and see what he looks like. And yeah, I didn't watch the interview. I just wanted to try out the microphone again and report my news and talk a little bit, because sometimes I feel like talking in the morning. Whatever my voice sounds like, I feel like talking in the morning sometimes. But that link will be down there, and I don't know if he's going to do the spokesperson thing. I was hoping, since he has worldwide fame, more or less. I don't know, it may have faded, because if you get out of the public eye for like 2 years now, you know, I don't know if he's still a name or a famous dude, because the world moves so fast nowadays. It's like if you're out of the public eye for a couple of years, they might have forgot about him. He might not be that famous anymore. I don't know, except for the people that are like his fans. But anyways, I thought, like, famous guy, he could be a spokesperson and speak out about his benzo experience, and how then people would know, like, just by looking at him, you would know that shit is dangerous. And if somebody who's perhaps bright in some ways but stupid in others, like me, comes across a pill, and he'll look it up and see that it's a benzo and be like, oh, this is that shit that fucked up that famous dude, man, I better be careful with this, and put the pill over here or give it back to the person that gave it to him. And instead of, you know, going on my 5-year trip down the river Styx, sipping Mai Tais with Chiron and enjoying the scenery, because yeah, that's what my wish is like, this guy would be the ultimate benzo awareness dude, because he put on a video and it would get like 2 or 3 million hits. So, you know, he was a big deal. Like, I think he's been out of the public eye for like 2 years. He's been fighting the benzo thing and going to like clinics in different countries and stuff for like 2 years. So I'll put that link down there. And yeah, I won't make the mistake of letting this video get away from me like the last one, where I was just embarrassed at the end of it. I didn't really talk about anything. I don't know why I just get like that sometimes. I just get embarrassed. This is a self-indulgent thing, and maybe that's why I get embarrassed. You know, it's like, I don't work from a script. You know, there's my script. There's, you know, that's my notes. I mean, I'm just on here talking, and so I don't get any feedback. I can't see your eyes glazing over or rolling at various points where I'm like, I should move on now. So, you know, I can't tell when I'm being tedious, because of course, you know, I'm sitting here exploring something thoroughly that's interesting to me that may not be interesting to other people. So the last thing that I made just a minute ago, and luckily I had the excuse of the audio was not good on it because the gain was up too high. So I turned the gain back down a little bit, and we'll see how this comes out. But I was like, oh cool, I have an excuse to throw this video out, because I was like, gotta put it up, that's the rules. But I'm like, no, I'm gonna break the rules this time and be a hypocrite. And I mean, I didn't talk about anything of any significance but some past memories of my brother teaching me how to box, besides what I've talked about on here already. I talked about a conversation I had with my brother last night, a conversation I had with my best friend, and I talked about my brother teaching me how to box. I talked about how I didn't like fights on TV when they were played for laughs, because a fight is a serious thing. And I talked about this boxing match. I'll put the link down there for you if you want to watch it, with this basketball player that didn't know how to box. And I have no idea what he was thinking. You make a lot of money playing in the NBA, and if I know the guy's name, that means he's probably filthy rich. So why are you going in there and getting knocked out unconscious for 2 to 3 minutes? I didn't sit for the whole 2 to 3 minutes of him being unconscious and laying on his face. But I guess Snoop Dogg was a celebrity commentator. It was like, is he dead? It looked like he was dead. So fighting ain't no joke. And he did say, I hate Snoop Dogg for whatever reason. But he said one thing that was cool, which was, you don't play boxing. You play basketball. You play other sports and stuff. You play tennis. You play golf. You don't play boxing. That's why you never hear, I'm going to go play boxing now. Boxing is not a game. Fighting is not a game. So I used to hate it when I would see them having jokey bar fights where people were just punching each other and then laughing afterwards. I was like, no, no. I've been in a lot of fights. None of them were funny. Uh, they, I, they can be funny if you watch them from the outside and you're not involved in it. For instance, it was funny when my foster brother got in a fight with one of his best friends, and somebody was laughing at a party. He didn't even know the guy or who he was, and walked up to him and said, "You think that's funny, do you? Do you think this is funny?" And just knocked him down. Now that's funny, but I don't think I would laugh if I was there. It would be funny, if he was like, one guy laughed because he had to like beat up his friend, and he went up to that guy, and that's something that's cinematic that you would see in a movie, and he had the great line, "Oh, you think that's funny? Do you? Do you think this is funny?" And then punched that guy, and then this other guy started laughing, and then he punched that guy, and then it just kept going, and he punched out everybody at the party who had a Y chromosome. But if you're involved in the shit, it's never funny. It's always serious because you don't know who you're fucking with. You might be fucking with one of them guys that when the fight's over, for me, the fight was over when the guy fell down, and it was up to him. If he wanted to get back up and try again, then the fight would start again. But for other people, if they get knocked down, they just kick the guy in the ribs while he's down, or in my case, in the head. You know, it's like I was getting kicked in the head when I got beat up, and I was like, well, I never fought a guy like this before. This guy's kind of serious about this shit. It's like I fought people before that fought dirty, but I never fought somebody that would kick somebody that's unconscious in the head, because I woke up out of unconsciousness. Don't ask me how that was possible. You think, like, if you're unconscious and you're getting kicked, it might be a way to wake somebody up. Like my sister woke up that young kid that was fucking some other girl in their living room by kicking him. That might be a way to wake somebody up when they were sleeping, but not when they had already been knocked the fuck out. Like I was out, man. I was like, another thing that people don't realize is, like, when you get hit in boxing, there's 2 hits involved when you get knocked out, and that is like when you get hit in the face and when your head hits the canvas, because the canvas is made to give a little bit, but that hit on the canvas is not good. And for me, that hit was on like literal brick wall. So I got hit in the face, and I flew backwards, and I hit the back of my head against the brick wall, so I was out. And the guy kicked me in the face, and that was my wake-up call. But you don't think it would work that way. You think you would just be unconscious and not wake up. But I woke up, and I was like, why is my head going this way and that way? I was like, for a minute, I didn't even know what was happening, and the dude was kicking me. I shouldn't do that with my sore neck, to be demonstrative. But I was like, when I originally woke up, I was like, why is my head doing this? Oh, I'm getting kicked in the face. And then I looked, and there was 2 guys pulling this guy off of me, and I took one final kick in the face, and I got hip to what was going on, and then I covered up and stuff like that. But that's why fighting is a serious matter, because you don't know if you're going to fight a psycho. You don't know if you're going to fight a guy who's going to pull a knife on you. You don't know if you're going to fight a guy that's going to like sniper you off of a roof like a year later. You don't know if you're going to fight a guy like my dad who wouldn't care if it took 10 years. He would do something evil to you. You don't know what you're dealing with. Even with kids, you didn't know you don't know what you're dealing with when you're fighting, because there was this kid named Bud Stebbins that banged this kid's head on the playground asphalt, because they had recess back in the day, by his hair, and I was in detention, which I wasn't allowed to go outside that day, probably for beating up some other kid. but and I went into the bathroom, and that kid's name was Eric Wolfinger. No, it was Eric Wolf. Wolfinger was the really cute girl. His name was Eric Wolf, and his face was bright red. There was sweat coming out of every pore on him, and there was no blood on him, but he wasn't answering. He wasn't responsive to questions. I mean, he had a severe concussion. That was like in 7th or 8th grade. There was some psycho doing that kind of shit. And like I've said, that I got in a fight with that kid, and they broke it up. And the kid had me in a headlock and was punching me in the top of the head, and I was getting ready to do some evil shit to him. I took my face down, so he couldn't. He was trying to uppercut me in the face while he had his arm. He was trying to get the thing around the neck, but it was around my face because I slipped my face down. So he was punching me in the top of the head. So, that's nothing. That's one of your hardest things. That's you headbutt somebody. That's what you use. So it's like, it wasn't fun, but I was like trying to get some leverage on him so I could get out of this fucking hole that he had me in. And then the teachers came and broke it up, and they were like, how kids are. They're like, the winner, Bud Stebbins, you got your ass kicked. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck fight you were watching. But that wasn't really a fight. That fight never got a chance to get started. And that was the kid that, I didn't beat him up at all, really. But I did what I did to him. I didn't do it for the benefit of my reputation or in front of anybody. I think nobody really knew it happened but a couple of people. But that was the kid that I was running with the ball like this, and he was trying to do the football thing and punch it out of my hand. And he punched me in the face instead, and I threw the ball down and picked him up and threw him over the hood of a car, and his back hit the emblem of the car. That was the part that stuck in my mind, because I was like, ooh, shit. And he just slid off of the car. So, yeah. Fights are not funny. Violence is stupid. Don't play that game. Unfortunately, if I had daughters especially, it would be mandatory. ABCs, and you learn how to use these, man. Self-defense would be mandatory, especially if I had daughters. It's like, you go and you learn how to kick this guy's ass in school. And I would talk to the guy, or not in school, but in one of those classes, self-defense classes, and I would talk to the guy and I'd be like, don't you dare take it easy on my daughters. Or I will come back here and we'll see how good you are at self-defense. This would be a younger, healthier, more threatening me, of course, if my life would have been different and if I would have had daughters. But the idea of people that actually have daughters and don't teach them how to hurt people makes no sense to me, is what I'm saying. But anyways, that's just some of the mess that I was talking about in the earlier video. I don't feel that douchebaggy feeling right now, but before I get there, I want to stop and get off of here. Hopefully the sound will be all right. I mean, I played with the microphone yesterday a little bit, trying to figure it out, the humming noise, or why it was humming, and switched the settings on it. I turned the gain almost all the way up. That didn't work out so good, but they gave me an excuse to ditch the last video that I made. And I turned it down a bit. So, I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm not a sound engineer or a lighting engineer or a hoo-hoo engineer. I am not a mechanical dude, which is another thing from the ditched video that I talked about, is like the idea of stagnation and not learning anything practical. Like, I learn things, but they're not practical things that I can apply and ordinary, everyday life. Like my brother taught me how to block punches. So when I would get in a fight with a guy, and some people fight, they use the I'll get all mad and crazy technique of fighting, which means that they swing these stupid roundhouse punches, and you're like, when you block them, because you can see them coming. You can see them coming in their eyes, in their body, their whole attitude. They're gonna run at you, and they're gonna knock you down with that first big haymaker punch. And what you do is, somebody's knocking on my door. I don't think I'm gonna answer it. Matter of fact, I know I'm not gonna answer it because they would have called me, whoever it is. They're knocked pretty hard too. But anyways, I'm gonna leave, and this person at my door is gonna leave. I don't think anybody rang my phone, but I should check to see if anybody rang my phone. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.